Narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's Apostle said, the prayer of a person who does hadith, passes urine, stool or wind, is not accepted till he performs or repeats the ablution. A person from Hadramaut asked Abu Huraira, what is hadith? Abu Huraira replied, hadith means the passing of wind from the anus. Narrated by Nu'aym al-Majmir. Once I went up the roof of the mosque along with Abu Huraira. He performed ablution and said, I heard the Prophet saying, on the day of resurrection, my followers will be called al-Ghur al-Muhajjalun from the trace of ablution, and whoever can increase the area of his radiance should do so, i.e. by performing ablution regularly. Narrated by Abbas bin Tamim. My uncle asked Allah's Apostle about a person who imagined to have passed wind during the prayer. Allah's Apostle replied, he should not leave his prayers unless he hears sound, or smells something. Narrated by Usama bin Zayd. Allah's Apostle proceeded from Arafat till when he reached the mountain pass, he dismounted, urinated, and then performed ablution, but not a perfect one. I said to him, is it the time for the prayer, O Allah's Apostle? He said, the place of prayer is ahead of you. He rode till when he reached Al-Muzdalifah, he dismounted and performed ablution and a perfect one, the call for Iqamah was pronounced and he led the Maghrib prayer. Then everybody made his camel kneel down at its place. Then the Iqamah was pronounced for the Isha prayer which the Prophet led, and no prayer was offered in between the two prayers Isha and Maghrib. Narrated by Atta bin Yasir. Ibn Abbas performed ablution and washed his face in the following way, he ladled out a handful of water, rinsed his mouth and washed his nose with it by putting in water and then blowing it out. He then took another handful of water and did like this, gesturing, joining both hands, and washed his face, took another handful of water and washed his right forearm. He again took another handful of water and washed his left forearm and passed wet hands over his head. And took another handful of water and poured it over his right foot up to his ankles and washed it thoroughly, and similarly took another handful of water and washed thoroughly his left foot up to the ankles, and said, I saw Allah's Apostle performing ablution in this way. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. The Prophet said, if any one of you on having sexual relations with his wife said, and he must say it before starting, in the name of Allah. O Allah, protect us from Satan and also protect what you bestow upon us, i.e. the coming offspring, from Satan, and if it is destined that they should have a child, then Satan will never be able to harm that offspring. Narrated by Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. Allah's Apostle said, if any one of you goes to an open space for answering the call of nature, he should neither face nor turn his back towards the Qibla, he should either face the east or the west. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. People say, whenever you sit for answering the call of nature, you should not face the Qibla or Jerusalem. I told them. Once I went up the roof of our house and I saw Allah's Apostle answering the call of nature while sitting on two bricks facing Jerusalem, but there was a screen covering him. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. I went up to the roof of Hafsa's house for some job and I saw Allah's Apostle answering the call of nature facing Sharm, Syria, Jordan, Palestine and Lebanon, regarded as one country, with his back towards the Qibla. See Hadith number 147. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. Whenever Allah's Apostle went to answer the call of nature, I along with another boy used to accompany him with a tumbler full of water. Hisham commented, so that he might wash his private parts with it. Narrated by Abu Qatada. Allah's Apostle said, whenever any one of you drinks water, he should not breathe in the drinking utensil, and whenever any one of you goes to a lavatory, he should neither touch his penis nor clean his private parts with his right hand. Narrated by Abu Huraira. I followed the Prophet while he was going out to answer the call of nature. He used not to look this way or that. So when I approached near him, he said to me, fetch for me some stones for cleaning the private parts, or said something similar, and do not bring a bone or a piece of dung. So I brought the stones in the corner of my garment and placed them by his side, and I then went away from him. When he finished from answering the call of nature, he used them. Narrated by Humran, the slave of Uthman. I saw Uthman bin Affan asking for a tumbler of water, and when it was brought, He poured water over his hands and washed them thrice, and then put his right hand in the water container and rinsed his mouth, washed his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out. Then he washed his face and forearms up to the elbows thrice, passed his wet hands over his head and washed his feet up to the ankles thrice. Then he said, Allah's apostle said, if anyone performs ablution like that of mine and offers a 2 rakat prayer during which he does not think of anything else, not related to the present prayer, then his past sins will be forgiven. After performing the ablution, Uthman said, I am going to tell you a hadith which I would not have told you had I not been compelled by a certain holy verse. The sub-narrator or Wa said, this verse is, verily those who conceal the clear signs and the guidance which we have sent down. I heard the Prophet saying, if a man performs ablution perfectly and then offers the compulsory congregational prayer, Allah will forgive his sins committed between that prayer and the next prayer till he offers it. Narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's apostle said, if any one of you performs ablution he should put water in his nose and then blow it out, and whoever cleans his private parts with stones should do so with odd numbers, and whoever wakes up from his sleep should wash his hands before putting them in the water for ablution, because nobody knows where his hands were during sleep. Narrated by Muhammad ibn Ziyad. I heard Abu Huraira saying as he passed by us while the people were performing ablution from a utensil containing water, perform ablution perfectly and thoroughly, for Abu al-Qasim, the Prophet, said, save your heels from the hellfire. Narrated by Amatiyah. That the Prophet at the time of washing his deceased daughter had said to them, start from the right side beginning with those parts which are washed in ablution. Narrated by Aisha. The Prophet used to like to start from the right side on wearing shoes, combing his hair and cleaning or washing himself, and on doing anything else. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. Saw Allah's apostle when the Asr prayer was due and the people searched for water to perform ablution but they could not find it. Later on a pot full of water for ablution was brought to Allah's apostle. He put his hand in that pot and ordered the people to perform ablution from it. I saw the water springing out from underneath his fingers till all of them performed the ablution. It was one of the miracles of the Prophet. Narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's apostle said, if a dog drinks from the utensil of any one of you it is essential to wash it 7 times. Narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, a man saw a dog eating mud from the severity of thirst. So, that man took a shoe and filled it with water and kept on pouring the water for the dog till it quenched its thirst. So Allah approved of his deed and made him to enter paradise. And narrated Hamza bin Abdullah, my father said, during the lifetime of Allah's apostle, the dogs used to urinate, and pass through the mosques, come and go, nevertheless they never used to sprinkle water on it, urine of the dog. Narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khud. Allah's apostle sent for an Ansari man who came with water dropping from his head. The Prophet said, perhaps we have forced you to hurry up, haven't we? The Ansari replied, yes. Allah's apostle further said, if you are forced to hurry up during intercourse or you do not discharge, then ablution is due on you. This order was cancelled later on, i.e. one has to take a bath. Narrated by Al-Mughira bin Shu'bah. I was in the company of Allah's apostle on one of the journeys and he went out to answer the call of nature, and after he finished I poured water and he performed ablution. He washed his face, forearms, and passed his wet hand over his head and over the 2 leather socks. Narrated by Jabir. Allah's apostle came to visit me while I was sick and unconscious. He performed ablution and sprinkled the remaining water on me and I became conscious and said, O Allah's apostle, to whom will my inheritance go, as I have neither ascendants nor descendants? Then the divine verses regarding inheritance were revealed. Narrated by Anas. It was the time for prayer, and those whose houses were near got up and went to their people to perform ablution, and there remained some people sitting. Then a painted stove pot containing water was brought to Allah's apostle. The pot was small, not broad enough for one to spread one's hand in, yet all the people performed ablution. The sub-narrator said, we asked Anas, how many persons were you? Anas replied, we were 80 or more. It was one of the miracles of Allah's apostle. Narrated by Abdullah bin Zayd. Once Allah's apostle came to us and we brought out water for him in a brass pot. He performed ablution thus: he washed his face thrice, and his forearms to the elbows twice, then passed his wet hands lightly over the head from front to rear and brought them to front again and washed his feet up to the ankles. Narrated by Amr bin Yahya. On the authority of his father, my uncle used to perform ablution extravagantly, and once he asked Abdullah bin Zayd to tell him how he had seen the Prophet performing ablution. He asked for an earthenware pot containing water, and poured water from it on his hands and washed them thrice, and then put his hand in the earthenware pot and rinsed his mouth and washed his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out thrice with one handful of water. He again put his hand in the water and took a handful of water and washed his face thrice, then washed his hands up to the elbows twice, and took water with his hand, and passed it over his head from front to back and then from back to front, and then washed his feet up to the ankles and said, "I saw the Prophet performing ablution in that way." Narrated by Thabit. Anas said, the Prophet asked for water, and a tumbler with a broad base and no so deep containing a small quantity of water was brought to him, whereby he put his fingers in it. Anas further said, noticed the water springing out from amongst his fingers. Anas added, estimated that the people who performed ablution with it numbered between 70 to 80. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar. Sa'id bin Abi Waqqas said, the Prophet passed wet hands over his cuffs. Abdullah bin Umar asked Umar about it. Umar replied in the affirmative and added, whenever Sa'id narrates a hadith from the Prophet, there is no need to ask anyone else about it. Narrated by Jafar bin Amr. My father said, I saw the Prophet passing wet hands over his turban and cuffs, leather socks. Narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas. Allah's apostle ate a piece of cooked mutton from the shoulder region and prayed without repeating ablution. Narrated by Jafar bin Amr bin Umayyah. My father said, I saw Allah's apostle taking a piece of cooked mutton from the shoulder region and then he was called for prayer. He put his knife down and prayed without repeating ablution. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. Allah's apostle drank milk, rinsed his mouth and said, it has fat. Narrated by Aisha. Allah's apostle said, if any one of you feels drowsy while praying, he should go to bed, sleep, till his slumber is over, because in praying while drowsy one does not know whether one is asking for forgiveness or for a bad thing for oneself. Narrated by Anas. The Prophet said, if any one of you feels drowsy while praying, he should sleep till he understands what he is saying, reciting. Narrated by Amr bin Amir. Anas said, the Prophet used to perform ablution for every prayer. I asked Anas what you used to do. Anas replied, we used to pray with the same ablution until we break it with hadith. Narrated by Ibn Abbas. Once the Prophet, while passing through one of the graveyards of Medina or Mecca, heard the voices of two persons who were being tortured in their graves. The Prophet said, these two persons are being tortured not for a major sin, to avoid. The Prophet then added, yes. They are being tortured for a major sin. Indeed, one of them never saved himself from being soiled with his urine, while the other used to go about with calumnies, to make enmity between friends. The Prophet then asked for a green leaf of a date palm tree, broke it into two pieces and put one on each grave. On being asked why he had done so, he replied, I hope that their torture might be lessened, till these get dried. Narrated by Anas bin Malik. The Prophet saw a Bedouin making water in the mosque and told the people not to disturb him. When he finished, the Prophet asked for some water and poured it over the urine. Narrated by Abu Huraira. A Bedouin stood up and started making water in the mosque. The people caught him, but the Prophet ordered them to leave him and to pour a bucket or a tumbler of water over the place where he had passed the urine. The Prophet then said, you have been sent to make things easy and not to make them difficult. Narrated by Aisha, the mother of faithful believers. A child was brought to Allah's apostle and it urinated on the garment of the Prophet. The Prophet asked for water and poured it over the soiled place. Narrated by Asma. A woman came to the Prophet and said, "If any one of us gets menses in her clothes, then what should she do?" He replied, "She should take hold of the soiled place, rub it, and put it in the water and rub it in order to remove the traces of blood, and then pour water over it. Then she can pray in it." Narrated by Abu Huraira. The Prophet said, "A wound which a Muslim receives in Allah's cause will appear on the day of resurrection as it was at the time of infliction. Blood will be flowing from the wound, and its color will be that of the blood, but will smell like musk." Narrated by Abu Huraira. Allah's Apostle said, "We Muslims are the last people to come in the world, but will be the foremost on the day of resurrection." The same narrator told that the Prophet had said, "You should not pass urine in stagnant water which is not flowing, then you may need to wash in it." Narrated by Abdullah bin Masud. Once the Prophet was offering prayers at the Kaaba. Abu Jarhal was sitting with some of his companions. One of them said to the others, "Who amongst you will bring the abdominal contents, intestines, of a camel of Bani so and put it on the back of Muhammad when he prostrates?" The most unfortunate of them got up and brought it. He waited till the Prophet prostrated and then placed it on his back between his shoulders. I was watching but could not do anything. I wish I had some people with me to hold out against them. They started laughing and falling on one another. Allah's Apostle was in prostration, and he did not lift his head up till Fatima, Prophet's daughter, came and threw that camel's abdominal contents away from his back. He raised his head and said thrice, "O Allah! Punish Quraysh." So it was hard for Abu Jarhal and his companions when the Prophet invoked Allah against them, as they had a conviction that the prayers and invocations were accepted in the city Mecca. The Prophet said, "O Allah! Punish Abu Jarhal, Utbah bin Rabi'ah, Shaiba bin Rabi'ah, Al-Walid bin Utbah, Umayyah bin Khalaf, and Uqbah bin al-Mu'it," and he mentioned the seventh whose name I cannot recall. "By Allah in whose hands my life is, I saw the dead bodies of those persons who were counted by Allah's Apostle in the Kalib, one of the wells of Badr." Narrated by Hudayfa. Whenever the Prophet got up at night, he used to clean his mouth with siwak.